transcription. So I wanted to keep my chat. We'll try to manage here from both angles. And again, welcome. This is the first installment of the 2023 spring series for the North Carolina chapter of the American Fisheries Society, specifically our mentoring committee. I serve as chair and work with many students and those interested in a conservation career. Had the opportunity to speak with Matt Bodenhamer here, and we decided we'd try to start the first installment on the fish hatchery components of fisheries and aquatic sciences careers. Great opportunity for that. And just a brief intro as to the North Carolina chapter mission statement is to improve the conservation and sustainability of fisheries resources and aquatic ecosystems by advancing fisheries and aquatic science and promoting the development of fisheries professionals. This includes the exchange of information among chapter members and with the general public. The mentoring committee started in 2020, and we've been at it ever since, learning more and more as we go. So as I work through a series of emails, I send out surveys about how we could better serve the students and those interested in a conservation career. And some folks select or provide information about having a panel or asking questions of current employees of a fisheries organization or conservation organization. So kind of some background there. And with that, I'm going to ask Matt if he wouldn't mind telling him a little bit about himself to us and sharing his background with us tonight.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. I guess I'll go ahead and take it away from here. And I do appreciate the couple of people that have joined in with us this evening. Think hopefully this will be pretty informative to you. If nothing else, you can maybe learn something. But to let you know about myself, my name's Matt Bodenhamer. I've actually been here at the Table Rock Fish Hatchery since 2016. I started out as a technician one and made my way up to the assistant hatchery superintendent, and have loved my tenure here for sure. And as far as my background, I came from Hendersonville, North Carolina. That's where I grew up. It was a great place to live, and a lot of small town vibes there. Really enjoyed it. But obviously it left me being into the outdoors, and I really enjoyed that and wanted to make a career out of it. So everybody has a story. Everybody has their story on how they end up where they are, especially career wise. And so that's kind of a little bit why I want to talk to y'all tonight, is kind of just to explain at least how I got to where I am and a little bit of how the hatchery operations and everything work. So to kind of get started, I knew unlike a lot of people, I knew at a decently young age that I wanted to be in the into the realm of fish and wildlife. And so what I ended up doing is working my way through, kind of trying to do the research in high school. And I'll admit, once I got into the collegiate career, I knew I wanted to go to NC State due to the fact that they had a wildlife and fisheries management degree there. But then I kind of got lost, and I feel like that happens to a lot of students. They're not really sure what options there are. They, I guess, like I said, I'll go back to how I did it. I knew it was competitive. I knew that I was going into a competitive realm of career options. So I actually went to Blue Ridge Tech and actually started with a year of heating and air conditioning. Are we still there? Can anybody hear me? Seems like we may have lost y'all.
I got you.
Are we there? Did we? All right. How long have I been gone?
You're still there.
Still here? Okay, good. Just want to make sure everybody's good. So I actually went to okay, good deal. Thank you, Bailey. So I actually went to a tech school. Without getting into the weeds of that, my mom and dad both worked and retired from there, so had its perks there for getting, cheaper tuition and such. But I went for heating and air conditioning because I knew I needed a fallback plan due to the competitive nature of these careers. So I went through that. It was fine. Went through my 2-year school, my associate's degree, all with the minds of transferring to NC State. When I ended up at NC State for the fisheries and wildlife management degree, I knew there that I really wanted to work in fisheries. I loved to fish growing up, even though I did enjoy the hunting realm as well. I enjoyed fisheries more. However, due to the nature of how specific this career option is, a lot of my credits didn't transfer. So I ended up having to do the wildlife concentration instead of the fisheries concentration. So with that said, that's something that will be a key point to this discussion this evening, is that, when it comes to the hatchery positions, it isn't too specific on the realm of you have to have a fisheries concentration. It certainly doesn't hurt by any means, but it isn't the end of the world if you don't. Through that, my time at NC State, and you just got to know me of a person who I am, but I'm someone that likes to really put myself out there, especially if I'm in a place where I feel like I'm not sure of the career options. Again, remember, I'm going into state knowing, well, I want to be in fisheries, but I don't know anything else about it. Well, NC State actually had the opportunity that our headquarters was on their campus. And I ended up just, well, that's no problem. So probably pretty much what happened is that I ended up going to the headquarters, our wildlife headquarters, and I just spoke to someone. I just decided to go to the front desk and said, I'm interested in fisheries. Who do I need to talk to? Well, that's where I learned how this agency works. The lady that I spoke with, she was super nice, sent me not only to the 4th floor, which meant nothing to me at this point, but she sent me to Bob Curry at the time, which is the division chief of the entire fisheries division in the Wildlife Commission. And here, walking into this man's room expecting, not even sure what to expect, he was just as down to earth and so excited that I came and spoke to him. And that's where I definitely want to show emphasis that your collegiate career is important. However, the networking that you do is insurmountable to your career path. And just by me doing that, sitting down, speaking with him, it pretty much just started my whole career. Did he just give me a job? Absolutely not. But he told me the opportunities that we had. So when it came to which way did I want to go, I was already a few years into being in college. I'm now at NC State, knowing I've still got to go due to the credits transfers 3 more years versus 2 to receive my bachelor's. I'll admit the master's degree really wasn't on the horizon for me. But he was telling me that was no problem, that there is the hatchery side of things. And so when I got to looking at the hatchery side, I was thinking, wow, this is It's a lot like farming. I grew up on an apple country farm myself. This seems like something that I'll be interested in. And due to that, I was able to work through him to reach out to Jacob Rash, our cold water research coordinator, who ended up giving me 2 summer internships during my tenure at NC State. While I went to these summer internships, I ended up meeting a man working on a project named Byron Levon, who ended up having his own master's thesis at NC State, and he hired me as his technician through the duration of while I was in school. So, like I said, I can't preface it enough that going and speaking and doing those steps of the networking of the career path that you think you might want to be in is so important. It is so important. And so here it is, from 20 minutes of speaking with Mr. Bob Curry. I now have 2 internships under my belt, 3 years of my collegiate career working with deer, turkey, and mourning dove management, and staying in the system. Well, under these internships, I was able to turn around and say, hey, I'm fixing to graduate. I think the hatchery system is for me. What options are there? Well, there's only 22 of us in the state, so it's kind of hard. It's competitive, but due to the networking, I was able to work under Thomas Russ, which was our Foothills regional biologist for non-game. Then I transferred to the Wilkes Land and Water Access Depot, and again, still not hitting on the hatchery realm. However, what ended up happening was I learned all these kind of secondary skill sets that I didn't know was going to help me as well as it did for the hatchery position. So after being in Wilkes for about 6 months, there is a full-time position at Table Rock open. However, nothing is guaranteed, but I've been trying to work my way into the hatchery realm. And so I ended up getting a internship at the Armstrong cold water facility. So when I was there, I was able to work. And again, I've already worked there some during my summer internships. I was able to work there for about a month full time. And then I had the interview and was able to land the full-time position here at Table Rock, which is the only cool water facility that our state has. And so that's kind of just as quick as I can of a synopsis of how I got to this position. So I'll stop there if there's any questions, and I'll let Kevin take it for a second. I think you're muted, Kevin.
I am. Thank you very much. So yeah, great introduction, and it's so exciting to listen to how steps along the way you're keyed in on. And that's really what I try to emphasize in the mentoring realm of, there is no one way. It's not a ladder of you get to this step and this step and this step, and then you're here. I think everyone does have a story. But I do like the idea about as you take a break, if Colby or Bailey or anyone else has a question, let's go ahead and just have a conversation tonight, and I'm sure it will inform those that ask the question as well as others that will listen later.
I didn't really have so much a question as how much I just agree with you with how important it is just to communicate with people and to put yourself out there like you did. That's how I got my last internship in Alaska. I just called the refuge office and asked them if they could if they needed anyone because they're so remote. And I talked on the phone with her probably once a week for 2 months, and we just kept communicating and setting it up. And that just, and it's nice to hear a story like that of how successful it was for you. It just is made me feel good. But
well,
yeah, that was real inspiring.
Let me tell you, Colby, and you're already having a gold star by being one of 2 people to enter this evening with you and Bailey. Both very good ideas. I really appreciate your time and interest. And again, it's the networking that will drive you into the career that you want.
Right.
You know, you make the comment that you're working right now at a tree farm, but I guarantee you that the skill sets that you're doing right now are skill sets that the hatchery operations can use. So, you stay with it and keep building that resume, and yeah, man, you will be successful.
That brings us to another. What is a fish hatchery looking for? Like, what does work basically entail for most people that end up getting on with them?
Buddy, that's a great question, and that is exactly why we're here this evening. So what a fish hatchery is looking for. I'll start with it like this. As far as the fish hatchery realm, Colby, on paper, we're only looking for a 2-year degree with 2 years of experience. Now, with a 4-year degree, that gives you 2 years of experience. So that extra 2 years helps. So there's nothing wrong with having that advanced degree. However, again, due to, as I mentioned earlier, how competitive these positions are, don't hold me to it, but I do know for a fact that when I applied for my tech position, there was over 100 applicants. And out of that 100, they narrowed it down to 5. And again, the networking is what landed me the position. However, to answer your question, what we really love to see is attitude, without a doubt, because attitude and passion for the career is a key staple of what we look for, because most hatcheries have at least or no more than 5 people. Now, that's not counting some temporaries, but we ourselves at Table Rock do not have any temporaries, but it's only 4 of us. So if you come in with a bad attitude and knowing that you have to work right beside 4 people for potentially 30 years is, that's rough. We want that initiative. We want that drive and passion. Something that is, again, as the fish hatchery side, we actually look for a lot of, or at least very interested in, not only the fisheries management, that does hold an important key, but also the hands-on experience as far as woodworking skills, fabrication skills. I would say welding. I don't have a lot of welding experience, but it's really cool to have if you've got it. Working with aluminum, because obviously being at a fish hatchery, we can't have a lot of steel or anything that'll rust. But kind of that, not only those skills, carpentry as well, but it's having that mind that at a fish hatchery, there's no fish hatchery store. There's some places where you can buy equipment, but as far as like needing stuff at each facility, and each facility from here to California, every single one of those facilities receives their water in a special way, has tank space in a certain way. Everything has to be custom developed. Everything has to be, fabricated or made just for us. And so, again, having those skills really help a lot with this. And to me, I enjoy that because it kind of keeps your mind sharp. It's kind of fun to just tackle these problems and figure out, how, we're not getting enough dissolved oxygen into our trout, in our flume line for our trout during the spring. How do we fix that? Well, they make what's called LHOs. Well, LHOs are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, an LHO simply breaks the water molecules. So we took a bunch of plastic tin, drilled a bunch of holes in it with a wood boring drill bit, about a 3/4 of an inch in size, had the water run over that into the flume line, and now we have a dissolved oxygen content that we haven't had to worry about. And I think I've been here 7 years, and I think, gosh, we've never had an issue with it. So like, that's just kind of a quick example of kind of how the fish hatchery works. Another thing, despite of attitude and fabrication and carpentry and stuff, working or running equipment, not necessarily working on it. It's good if you have some knowledge in that, but we do have a lot of equipment. We have tractors, we have a sickle bar mower, if you know what that is. We have some standard mowing equipment, weed eaters and such. So having knowledge and again, kind of that outdoorsy hands-on experience is great. That answered your question pretty decently for you, Colby?
Oh, definitely. You did more than enough answering it. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions before we move on?
Bailey, there you go.
Okay, I don't have too many questions. I'm just really listening. You've pretty much been covering everything that I'm interested in. I'm trying to figure out what path I want to take down a conservation career. So I just want you to keep on going. I mean, everything's been useful. Just like you were saying about the networking, Kevin put me in touch with Kyle Rachels. I went out with Kyle Rachels and did the electrofishing, and then the same day, Kyle also put me in touch with Fritz. So hopefully I'm going to go do some seining with Fritz.
So yeah, Bailey, that's awesome. I've got to meet those guys at the Inland Fisheries Division meeting. That they're both awesome. You should have a really good time with them. However, let me ask both of y'all really quick. I know, Colby, you said you're currently in Ashe County. Bailey, where are you right now as far as where you're living at?
I am in Wilmington, North Carolina, but I also live in Holly Ridge, so I do a lot of community.
Okay. How far is Watha from you, by chance, or do you know?
I do not know. If you give me just a second, I probably could pull it up.
Well, while you look that up, Bailey, as far as the hatcheries, again, with your interest in this, there is the Watha State Fish Hatchery, which is very close to Wilmington. Not very far at all, actually. And I'm sure they would not mind a bit for you guys to go out there and see what they're doing. And in fact, right now they're spawning striper. I know that for a fact, and they're real busy. They may not be able to give you an actual tour, but you could still visit the facility. It's an amazing place.
It's about 48 minutes from my house, so it's not too far at all.
Okay. Well, at the end of this, if your interest is still potentially in fish hatcheries, keep that in mind.
Okay.
So, and I'll briefly touch base on that. So there's 5 production facilities in North Carolina as far as under our agency. We have 2 cold water hatcheries. We have the Pisgah Fish Hatchery and the Armstrong Fish Hatchery. Those are both cold water, which means those are trout production only. They raise, they raise brown and rainbow trout. When it comes to the trout production side, the cold water facilities, it is very hands-on when it comes to working with the fish. They are all the time working on the trout, moving trout, keeping different types of diseases away from the trout, using like inoculants and some other like types of medicines that they inject them with. Then we have the cool water facility, which is where I am. It's Table Rock. Table Rock is temperature dependent. So being cool water, we actually can grow just about everything throughout the year, which is why I love it. It kind of keeps, to me, the monotony down as far as getting to try, at least trying to not only new methods, but also different species to kind of keep things fresh each year. Like right now, we have muskie in the building, smallmouth in the building. We have walleye in our ponds. We have lake sturgeon coming in June. We have catfish in the ponds that we stock, and we have trout currently that are also on site. And we don't necessarily grow those, but we get them from the other hatcheries, and we aid in the stocking during March and, really March through about May. Once you leave kind of the western region, you end up with two warm water facilities. Watha, which is what I just told you, which is the furthest east. The Watha State Fish Hatchery is the biggest fish hatchery, where we have 17 ponds. They have 54, I believe. It's a really big facility. And they grow striper, largemouth, bluegill. Kevin, you can correct me if I'm not. I know you were working with flyers. I don't know that they're growing flyers, but I know, I know you're working with them.
Yeah, no flyers at Watha.
Yeah, no flyers at Watha. So okay, so I know that they stock all warm water. So largemouth bass and stripers and such, and hybrids as well. McKinney Lake is in the Fayetteville area. They have mostly catfish. They're a catfish facility and stock a lot of your public park ponds, fish for fun events when they have them. But also what they do is they also work with a federally endangered species of fish called the robust red horse. So again, it's kind of, some different species. And I failed to mention this one. Pisgah, and this is pretty neat, for the first time ever at a cold water facility, they actually are raising some kokanee salmon, because there used to be a salmon run in the Nantahala Reservoir up in, I believe that's Macon County, Graham, I believe it's Graham County. And so they do have one other species, obviously still a salmonid, but in a cold water fish. So that kind of, in a nutshell, gives you your options. And with each hatchery, there is a hatchery superintendent, then there is an assistant superintendent, and depending on how big the facility is, and I believe there's 5 full-time people at Pisgah. There is, I believe there's 5 and 3 temporaries at Armstrong Fish Hatchery. Then you have the 4 positions here at Table Rock. In fact, we have one open right now, or going to be open. We had our technician Danielle. She left to have a federal position, so we miss her, but we totally understand. And then McKinney Lake has 3. They have they have a superintendent, assistant, and a technician there. And then at the Watha facility, there's 4 at the Watha facility right now. So under all of that umbrella of all those hatcheries and all of the positions, our supervisor is a man named David Deaton. and he's actually out of the Marion office here. And you know, as far as like him being over everything, that is the man that does the hiring, that is the man to be in contact with. Like I said, his name is David Dean. So I believe the next thing is that I left this out. Remember when I told you those 5, those were the production facilities. And then we have the research facility, which is at Marion, and that is the CAC. That is the Conservation Aquaculture Center. That is ran by a hatchery superintendent named Sierra Benfield. She's been with us about 2 years, and she just hired a tech. And honestly, I don't think I met her in passing one time. I cannot remember her name, but the CAC is kind of the new frontier for aquaculture. The CAC is a way that really it's more focused on not only fish species, but just aquatic federally endangered animals. In kind of a nutshell, for us, we really focus on mussel production and the mussel propagation side of it. We have a lot of federally endangered mussels in North Carolina, and we're talking so endangered that there's a couple of species that are actually on site there, and that's it. They have all of them in existence, and they are actually working on ways to be able to propagate those and reestablish those back into the correct streams and systems. And so it's, remember, like I said, when it comes to the finding custom ways to create things and make things and use technology, the CAC is where it's at. It's incredible. I've went there. A lot of it is being ran by our hatchery biologist. We have one hatchery biologist, and that is Peter Lamb, and I think it's a hatchery biologist position. It's like a research biologist position. He's not necessarily writing papers. He is more or less looking at trying to find new ways and more innovative ways to be able to make our hatcheries more efficient, if you will, and finding, when there's issues, how to fix those.
Yes, I'd agree.
Have everybody.
Yep, we got you. I'd agree with your Peter's. He's somewhat on that research coordinator level as I am in the coastal plain, and we have some great opportunities to work with staff on efficiencies and learning more from each other, which is a great segue into some of the questions that we had talked about. But thanks, Matt, for that background. I did drop the link where the NCWRC hatcheries are located at for more reference. And great stuff that the hatcheries are doing in North Carolina, and not only state hatcheries, federal hatcheries, university hatcheries. So I would agree with Matt that the conservation aquaculture is the cutting edge of hatcheries and ensuring that we do have these populations. Matt, you mentioned, working with folks in Wildlife Commission, but beyond. What's your favorite thing working with the Wildlife Commission?
Favorite thing working with the Wildlife Commission is definitely and the Wildlife Commission, I feel like, has done a really good job, especially on the kind of the boots on the ground level, the biologists and the management staff and the hatchery world. And even, and I've went all across. I've worked with education people in the education division and the land and water access and the wildlife division. And you just meet so many people that have just the same passion and drive for what what you're interested in and getting on board. You just immerse yourself into so much knowledge on everything, like all the time. Whenever there's a wildlife question or a fisheries question, I can like sit back and smile and say, I don't know, but I guarantee you I know who does have the answer. And that is, I take pride in that. And I think everybody that I've worked with takes pride in that. Um, you know, again, with that passion and drive, it's working with all the staff, like with the biologists. There's also this like consistent cohesion of working together. We're always, again, for us, we work alongside with the biologists, and we work with them probably the most out of anybody outside of the realm. A little bit in education, but it's fun to have the biologists go out and do a survey, come back, tell us, guys, we're brokenhearted. This historical walleye fishery is crashing. What can we do? Well, where their job is their research and their papers and showing the decline of this species and so on and so forth. Our science, it's like they come and they pass the torch to us. They come in and they hand it to us and say, guys, here's what we need. Can you do it? And we do everything possible along with them helping us on either collecting broodfish, keeping up with data, keeping their schedule open to help us. We work as this big collaborative unit to be able to bring back something. And while sometimes it may fail, at least in my career so far, I've gotten to see some things flourish. With our walleye population in Lake James, for example, we found some new ways and some new methods, and they came to us and they said, guys, we need help. We need at least 150,000 walleye to even start to bring back the population in Lake James. And not only Lake James, but Fontana, Hiwassee, Santila, all of these with this extravagant number. And here we are saying, we're going to do our best and try to figure it out. Well, here's a cool water species that we need help with growing, and we run out of space. When it comes to hatcheries, hatcheries is one of, and this, y'all will appreciate this. This is actually usually a question on an interview, is what is a hatchery's limiting factors? And one of the limiting factors to a hatchery is space. And so when we run out of the space for our pond production of walleye, we worked with Watha. Watha, who has more consistent temperatures in the spring because they're at the coast, they are completely well driven. So it doesn't matter that the fish are down there. It's just well water filling these ponds. And just like that, we went from putting all of the outrageous requests of walleye. We not only were able to stock them for the past 4 years, but we were actually able to shoot above them depending on how good the growing season was. So yeah, like Kevin said, asking what's my favorite part, it's definitely getting to work with a lot of staff with a lot of pride in what they do, and just the overall togetherness, and like you end up working with them year after year and you start getting close with them. You get to knowing them by not only them, but their families and their kids. And, a good example is Kevin. We just started really communicating with this, and Kevin, as far as I'm concerned, Kevin and I are pretty close at this point, and he's all the way at the coast. So if you guys find yourselves in the Wildlife Commission, you will enjoy the staff.
And I appreciate that, Matt. I agree. I think that a couple, really just a couple of months ago, going to the Outer Banks and working on a few other projects, and yeah, we stretch across the miles and that passion and drive, and myself having at least 25 years of experience. But the day-to-day routines, it's not the same. There's always something different, and the passion and an opportunity to learn together and then to share that with others. We're not the first through this. There was other people ahead of us that shared their stories, and I think that's the highlight of storytelling, is to be able to share that and be able to have opportunity to see yourself in these types of positions, but also mold an opportunity that maybe no one has ever had. For example, with the conservation aquaculture centers, and you hear some folks haven't been there but 2 or 3 years, and really that's been the duration of the position. So, I think it's highly valuable to share that. So, anyone have any questions up to this point for Matt? I mean, I've got a few more here in the background I'd like to ask, but wanted to make it sure that Bailey and Colby had plenty of time to ask their questions or comment.
So I have one last question. I've never really looked into much into working in the fisheries department in North Carolina, other than marine fisheries at the coast. But what level of commitment are you making when you're trying to get into working with the fish hatchery? Like, are there a lot of seasonal positions, or are they mostly full-time?
So that's a great question, Colby. And to answer your question, that this is how it normally works. So there are temporary positions that are usually available through the Coldwater, Armstrong Hatchery, and Pisgah. They are, I believe, and don't hold me to it, buddy, but I believe they have one. I think it's like a 4-month, then there's like a 6-month, and then there's an 11-month at Armstrong. And I don't know exactly the months that they are at Pisgah, but I know at least one of them is 11-month, and I believe they might have 2 6-month employees that are temporaries. Now, this is what happens when you get into the realm of, wanting, you start kind of finding this idea and this niche that you want to try to find yourself in. Remember earlier when I told you about kind of my story, when I started, there wasn't any temporary, all the temporary positions were filled. And so what happened is that here I was kind of lost, going, well, what do I do? Well, our agency is very strong with trying to get your foot in the door. I've encouraged a lot of students that if you want to get into our agency, just get your foot in the door. Like with what you're working and being in Ashe County right now, man, there's the Wilkes Depot not far from you. It's a land and water access depot, and there are a bunch of land and water access depots in the state. Lots of opportunities. There's a lot of job openings a lot of times. I would encourage you that if you can't find one of those positions with the hatcheries, to get into one of those. Yes, it's not necessarily working with fish, but remember that plumbing, carpentry, hands-on on equipment, getting to drive large equipment that the land and water access jobs, if you land one of those temporary positions, those positions actually require more skill sets as far as the heavy equipment and working with like planting and, safety, CDLs, all that kind of stuff. It kind of puts you above the mark for a hatchery position. What I would encourage you, though, Colby, is that, and Bailey too, if what I've said so far interests you, the hatchery positions, if you were to land into a technician or a temporary position with land and water access, just be sure to voice that your interest is hatcheries. And what I've seen many times before is I've seen, in fact, 3 times that people were interested in working at a fish hatchery. They worked under Tim Keller, which is the regional supervisor for the land and water access in Western North Carolina, worked at Marion. He knew they were interested in fish hatcheries, and they kept that, in mind. They kept building that time so that when one of the seasonals left, either got a full-time position or moved or for whatever reason, out of the 4 or 6 months, boom, they were next in line. With that said, too, I would also probably reach out to David Deaton and just come help us. The other cool thing on our agency is that I have yet to find someone that wasn't willing to help out somebody that wanted to get into our agency. If you need to go out and just like I would encourage you, Colby, being in Ashe County, and Bailey, for you being that close to Watha, if you want to go on a stocking run or you want to kind of get more information about it, call those hatcheries. Either call Chuck Melton or Spike Googe at Armstrong for Colby. Bailey, I would talk to Jeff Evans or Landon. Tell them you spoke to me. Tell them that you were interested and you're trying to learn more. Guys, I can almost guarantee you they'll find a way to just take you out on a stocking run. Armstrong's short right now on trucks, and I know that I bet you Spike would be more than happy to have you help stock some trout with him, or one of their full-time technicians, because the hatchery still has to run even though people are out stocking fish. So there's staff that has to stay back. So I would really encourage y'all to do that.
Thank you. I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Bailey, you got anything for me?
Not really. No.
That's
I've
okay.
also reached out to the Holly Shelter Depot because I have an interest in wildlife as well. So I'm a little bit in the middle of the two. So I have a contact there to see about potential volunteering, and then they also told me that I can also contact them because most of the time they don't have temporary positions posted. That you just contact them, and more than likely they have an opening, and they'll just take you on for 11 months. And if they like you, sometimes they keep you. So
Yep.
I'm just kind of waiting until I get closer to graduating to decide which way I'm going to go.
Yeah, that's great, because that's exactly how Lands and Water Access does it. They do not post temporary positions. It's kind of a, we want to get to know you, and those that have been actively pursuing, calling, it's becoming more and more clear that those that are actively, searching, get their names out and build that network of their own. And Bailey, you do a great job, and Colby, I've met you too. I mean, both of you are doing really, really good networking skills that you just can't train that stuff. You have to believe it in yourself and see yourself doing it. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I will take the moment to, I've got to say and just drive it home that you guys are, remember, let's look at what we've got right now. We have this recording that we're going to post on, maybe some different platforms, but there's just two of you. And that right there speaks a lot on, and, not knowing either one of y'all, the fact of putting in that extra effort just goes so far. And, I'll admit when it comes to them not posting the temporary positions, and like I said, usually the temporary positions are, even in our realm, are usually not open or posted publicly. Sometimes they are if we're really looking hard for somebody, or it's, kind of a, we need somebody right now. But you got to remember, like I said earlier, a lot of these positions are very, very small groups of people, 3-4 people at most. Holly Shelter, I don't believe has a lot of people. So, there is a strong, question. They want to make sure that, you are someone that's willing to put forth the effort to make that, to have that drive and have that commitment. And, it's not fun to be stuck with someone that doesn't want to work. It occasionally happens, and let me tell you, they don't make it very far. So that, like I said, you're doing it right for sure. And I guess I'll segue into that by kind of talking a little bit about education, at least with the hatchery realm. I'm never going to be someone that says that more education is bad. It's not. However, what I've spoke to a lot of students about and what I've seen is that there's a lot of students like myself when I walked in and, was confused and not really sure what way to go. At least with a 4-year institution, they are, they really advocate just going for more education, going for, that master's thesis, working for the college, and all of that is great. However, I've seen it time and time again that you have these people that focus so much on the academia part of it that you end up losing opportunities that you actually never knew even existed due to not doing what you guys are doing right now, doing the networking, looking to see what kind of opportunities are out there. We've actually had some masters, people with their masters apply and get these technician positions. But even then, it wasn't based on their masters. It was based off the fact that, hey, I have a really great resume as far as academia, but I'm still willing to get my foot in the door. And a lot of them that do that end up, again, I knew of one that she wanted to be a biologist, got into the hatchery system, and she stayed. She loved it. And so, it's just trying to kind of give y'all that idea that, look for that end goal, find the opportunity that, find the career that you want, find the education that it requires, figure out the level of competitiveness to figure out if you need to have an advanced degree for it, and then kind of sell yourself with experiences while backing yourself with education. And if you can form that, you really are like 10 steps ahead.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Matt, and you had an idea I'd be talking about it because I do often get those questions. What does it take to get into, the conservation career? I hear this, I hear that. I tend to like to, put myself into a person's shoes and try to hear what I was told early on in my career and then look across my career and see how much of that was really true or how much of it may or may not have really been as critical. especially if it's just looking at how one person got to a position as compared to a suite of people getting into a varied level of positions and opportunities. And I think that's the benefit of hindsight for me, but also listening and hearing the struggles and the challenges of being lost in this very competitive, very challenging situation, of which I was 30 when I had my first full-time position. And, I don't think I ever felt that there was a time ticking or something of that nature, but others might. Also, just the opportunity to be here. I think, we kind of harped on it in distribution wise, and, just folks being here out of, say 100 plus people, and it gets narrowed down to 5 people for an interview. And then it still comes down to just one or maybe 2 positions at one time. So Matt, maybe you could also talk about that competitiveness. If we're kind of giving people that similar advice, and we do have folks that sell themselves and they got experience and they've got that education, what are some of the things to folks to stand out in that moment of making it to that last cut, or they got the interview, and what are some of the pro tips in that interview moment?
So as far as the interview, I'll tell you, every interview that I've had with our agency, at least in the hatchery realm, is it ends up with this final question of, here's your chance, sell yourself of why you are the person for this position. And what I will say that has worked well for me, everybody's different, I suppose, but I have been told multiple times that I was chosen over people who were more qualified for me out of state due to the passion and the drive that I had. When I always said that, when answering that question, I always started it with, you may find someone that might be much smarter than me on the realm of academics. You could find someone with many more years of experience than me, but you will not find someone that is going to enjoy the job and continually enjoy the job more than me. And that has really resonated well in my interviews. And it's because I do back that up. I do feel this way. I continue to feel this way. I mean, guys, I got to say, and you guys doing what you're doing, you will find a day where you're going to be in my shoes and you're going to smile and say, I don't even go to work. I go here. I've got my position and I enjoy every day. I look forward to tomorrow. It's having that attitude as well, and that drive that'll set you apart. And again, we've mentioned it multiple times, but you know what? It is that important. Guys, you just got to network. You have to be able to, make those connections, find those people, and work with as many as possible, because you never know when they randomly select for the interviews. In fact, my first interview that I applied for was a full-time technician position for the Land and Water Access in Andrews, North Carolina, which wouldn't surprise me if either one of y'all knew where that was. It's way up in the mountains in Western North Carolina. And when I got to that interview, because of my networking, they even told me they had a hard time and finally had to give up trying to find people that didn't know me. Now, I actually did not get that position, which is okay, but still, they said that I came in second as far as they ended up hiring a temporary, just as we had spoke, a temporary that's been there at that depot for multiple years. They knew him. They knew how he worked. They knew everything about him. But, that totally makes sense. And so, lo and behold, really, I ended up with my temporary position and ended up getting my chance. So as far as the interviews, I would definitely say that has, at least for me, has been what has set me apart, other than, anything else, academic wise, and, fisheries resources wise, of all the skill sets that I had. It really ended up being the passion for wanting to work and wanting this position.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff. I mean, I try to think about too, where it's about who you know, but also add in, it's about who knows what you can do and who knows you. And then comes right back to the needs of networking, knowing the name, knowing others that know you, and tasks that you performed, and the way that you approach it. And that's super important. Um, Kind of on the same token, but maybe asking it a different way. Um, some other students have asked, what barriers are there to securing a full-time position? You know, um, I think that, having a good interview, having a good resume, having the networking, and we're talking about some of the temporary components, and we're talking about how competitive it is, but that securing of a full-time position, what do you think? You want to elaborate more on that, Matt, a bit, with the temporaries and the full-times?
Uh, sure. So I will say that one of the biggest barriers, and I like how that question was worded. One of the biggest barriers that I feel like a lot of people have is the unwillingness to move. Um, Remember, there's not a lot of us in the state, so in getting your foot in the door, you may have to move somewhere that, is going to be away from your family, potentially your girlfriend or your wife, depending on your age. And when you bottleneck yourself into that realm, you I would say, you are kind of hurting yourself. I, for example, lived in Hendersonville and went as far as, obviously NC State for school, but I ended up having to live in Marion during the summers. I ended up living with I lived in a little itty bitty farmhouse that I rented during my stint in Wilkes County. And, I had to constantly bounce around, um, which, again, I got my foot in the door. So it was worth it, and keeping up with those contacts. But as far as a barrier, even the temporary positions, there's not a lot of them if you decide that you only want to focus in a certain part of the state. Um, if you do that, that will hurt you. Um, be willing to move around. Be fluid in that regard. Um, Again, say even if you're interested in trout and you want to work at a cold water facility, make it known that that's what you want to do, but that you will do whatever it takes to get on full time and work your way to a temporary position. So I would say that the fact that there's not a lot of temporary positions in the hatchery is kind of a barrier, but really it's not, because it's, as far as temporary positions to get your foot in the door, wide scale, the land and water access, they've got you. And just like Bailey was saying, it's all in just keeping in communication and contact and letting them know and keeping fresh with them, and interning with them when they need help. That's what will get you that foot in the door. But yeah, if you bottleneck yourself and only say, I only want to work here, I don't know of many times that that's actually worked out for people. Usually everyone skips around somewhere else in the state. In fact, no one that I know of in this office ended up back they where they lived. Right, yeah, as a full-time position. Because even Jimmy, who's from Morganton, North Carolina, ended up having to go to McKinney Lake and Watha and Armstrong for a short stint before making his position and making his way to Morganton. Hopefully that answers it pretty decently for you, Kevin.
Oh, I think so. I mean, really, that's very helpful to consider. And I like the word bottleneck. And I don't like it, but I do like it in the description of what happens. And I think there are aspects of how moving around is a big part of it. Of course, I'm from Iowa, and I share my story often of that. And it is a challenge to get your foot in the door. And I also like to think of it as a locked door that you're designing the key to unlock that door, through all the tumblers and designing that key. And even though, well, I don't know where the door is, or I think I see a door, or I'm knocking at this door but nobody's answering, I try to also put it from the perspective of the foot in the door as a salesperson versus foot in the door and unlocking that, and you're just saving a spot to walk through that door, by unlocking that door with the key that you designed. And there might be multiple doors too. I think that's another big part. Also wanted to just maybe hit too, you did kind of highlight, Matt, about education, and we've talked about it at length, too. And I like how you've shared to back it by, what's your saying again? I'm sorry, how do you say that?
Just sell yourself through experience and back yourself with academics.
Academics, right? And so I think that's important. And that's the other question. Maybe I'm hitting on it too much, but the question does come up as to at what point will education get me that job? And we often hear folks move on to a master's degree or a PhD because a particular level of education didn't get them um, what they were looking for right after graduation. What any comments there, or anything you could share more into the components of those stepping stones along the academic routes? And is there a need for a pipeline and better navigation, that folks like us in mentoring or sharing with others can do?
Well, as far as as far as us, I feel like this is a great first step. Like Colby Bailey, I hope that this is somewhat informal for you. As far as those that are having that struggle of, hey, I've gotten this master's degree, I'm looking for this type of position. Um, I just can't find it and I'm struggling, and, I'm either going to go for my PhD or, just go do something completely off, not that has nothing to do with the realm of their master's. I will say that a lot of those times that, at least in my experience of those that I've met, again, it ends up being a issue of not networking and again, that bottleneck. Um, you know, I know of a certain individual that I went to school with that received their master's, and they wanted to work I think they wanted to work as a waterfowl biologist. There's one waterfowl biologist in our state, and they weren't willing to move to a different state. And it's something that, Kevin actually just hit on that I do need to interject quickly. When I say move, I did make that in state, which is still a much larger possibility. But just as Kevin said, you're unlocking those doors. You're making that key. Well, your key may be having to go to Virginia or having to go to South Carolina. Kentucky is, somewhere else in the U.S. to work and get that experience. Colby's talking about going to Alaska. That's impressive. You want to talk about finding drive. A man that's willing to go halfway or all the way across the country, that shows initiative. Not, I will say, I guess I do say that within in-state, there are a lot of opportunities. If someone was wanting to say, I want a career inside North Carolina, there's enough opportunities. But I do believe, as far as like those that struggle with that have that master's or wanting to continue on with education, that's fine, but make sure that what you're doing is your end goal. And if your end goal is to have that master's, to become that biologist, also be willing to take a position that you are overqualified for. Again, it's getting your foot in the door. Don't ever have a master's degree. Speaking of attitude, don't go in with a master's degree and literally say, well, I'm above these positions. You want to talk about a mood killer? No one wants to hear that, because we all work together in this agency and nobody is above anybody else.
Absolutely. I will have one follow-up question, but I first want to give Colby and Bailey a chance to comment or ask a question on any of that we've been talking about.
I agree with, I guess to comment on what you were saying with taking positions that you may be overqualified for. I mean, just where I met Kevin was when I was at Mattamuskeet, and I was helping with their waterfowl hunts, and I was just checking people on in an office. I mean, it could have been done by anyone really, but it helped me meet people, and it helped me get to know people better, or get to know people in the area better. And I didn't know anyone working in the Fish and Wildlife Service on the coast of North Carolina. So it was a really good introduction to everyone, and that's probably going to help me a lot, even though the actual job position itself didn't really supply anything to my resume.
Maybe not on paper, buddy, but
Yeah.
just like, look where you are. Here you are knowing Kevin, and now you're knowing me. It's that simple.
Yep.
Right.
Bailey, have any thoughts, comments?
So your work ethic and your drive to do said job, no matter what career path you take, is going to be just as important as your education.
Yes.
Is what I'm gathering. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's no doubt. And those are, again, things that, some of these aspects that we're talking about in terms of the academia or other experiences, but what you bring in that work ethic and passion, that's what really, that cream that rises to the top that we talk about. We see folks that, somewhat burn out early with it, or maybe it's not exactly what they thought, but that next step might have just been right there, and that next tumbler could have fell if, that passion and drive to fall back on, and the follow-up question I had, or was going to follow up with, and something that's really interesting about hatcheries, is that 24/7 of raising fish and opportunities to live at the hatchery. And cost of living these days is significant, and that's always been the case with this conservation career. we're certainly not in it for the money, but there is opportunities in places that do provide housing. And Matt, I'd like you to maybe chat just a little bit about that if you could.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm really glad you segued into that, because it's something that I thought about earlier, that I didn't touch base on, and really, is in its entirety. I'm going to give you the pros and cons to the facility, to the fish hatcheries, and I say cons because every job's going to have a few cons if they are cons to you. So one of the biggest pros to me, to the fish hatchery world, is provided housing. Each hatchery is different, and each hatchery deals with its on-call differently. I'll give you the example of mine. We have 2 on-site housing opportunities available. They are for the assistant and the superintendent. The 2 technicians here do not have housing. However, our other hatcheries, like our cold water facilities, gosh, in fact, I believe every hatchery has almost their entire staff in houses except for ours. And the reason, quickly, is the reason for that. Our hatchery, we deal with a lot of pond production, and we don't quite have to have that. However, we have spoken in the past with increasing the houses here on site. But regardless of that, that's one of the biggest pros. So I live on site on, I believe it's about 400 acres. I can go outside and hear nothing. It's just nothing but a creek and hearing turkeys gobble right now. As far as how the financial side of that works is, I do not have to pay for the house. I do not have to pay for, it's literally like renting, except you don't have to pay for it at all. So your water is included, any sort of maintenance done to the house is included. You do not have to pay for appliances. You don't even have to pay for light bulbs, guys. They pay for all of that. In return, your payment to the agency is being on call. Tonight, Jimmy is on call. I was on call last night. So we take turns being on call. Some people don't like that because in a way, you never leave work. And some people do struggle with that because they can't ever feel like they've left their 8-hour job. But for us, we don't even really work. This is great. This is like our passion. So what better way of having and extending our passion than getting to live here? So that, again, it's a pro con if you wanted it to be, but a big pro for sure is being able to live on site in most of the facilities. And this goes for other states as well. A lot of other states provide housing. Now, as far as, again, people might consider it a con. I consider it a pro. And I'll explain that. But we are actually the only other people, I believe, in our agency that are allowed to work weekends other than law enforcement staff. So we get to work weekends, and I say all of our hatcheries work weekends. Again, it's a revolving door. If, when we have 4 people on site, we work 1 weekend a month. Now, yes, that could be a con to people that it's, you're losing a weekend to be with your family. Well, when coming to work here on a weekend, you actually get time and a half off as a tech. Only the superintendent gets hour for hour off, but even as the assistant, I get time and a half. So at the end of the season, when we have all of our fish stocked out and we have our few months here to work on repair and maintenance, fix things, build stuff, we get to take a lot of time off. I've worked here 7 years, and I think I've burned maybe 100 hours of vacation. I've got more vacation than you have to do, have. Looks like Colby, you've got to go. That's all right. But there is a lot of opportunity to build time. A lot of opportunity to build time. So as far as the houses, that's a great one, the building of the time. And I don't mind, you can look it up what I'm paid, but most of our hatchery staff starts out in the low to mid 30s. And the assistant, like been an assistant for 2 years. I'm making about 45,000, but you got to remember, I'm not paying for a home. So the financial power of that less pay, like Kevin said, we don't get paid a lot, but as far as the financial and the buying power of that and being able to save is really, really, really good. So that's kind of as far as the pros and cons to the hatchery. The only other one that I would say, some people look at it as a con. We do each hatchery works differently, but for ours, during the summers, we have a lot of upkeep on the maintenance of our grounds. There is mowing, there is sickle barring and like cutting brush. There is a lot of I can't even say a lot. There's a little bit of weed eating, not a whole lot, because when you do it together, you get through it very quickly. But again, one might not do that. I also get to participate in smallmouth surveys. I get to hook and line smallmouth surveys. I get to float rivers with the biological staff. I get to work on the shocking boats. We get to run gill nets. We get to shock for brood in the spring. There's a lot more fisheries action. And as far as like using your education, there's way more opportunities to do that. The maintenance and the grounds maintenance and stuff, it's there, but it's not your entire year. It's not that much.
Great coverage of that, Matt. And I think when I worked for IODNR, the fisheries components were broken into 3: management, hatcheries, and research. And so to me, I always had this components of 3 around fisheries. So the appreciation for hatcheries and the opportunity to work together, to me, is always right there. And sharing those experiences and talking together and working through things when times are tough, is always good. But by and large, it is that, passion, work ethic, and a similar approach to accomplishing a task together, and big picture of conservation and natural resources. And ultimately, that's what we do. That's what we get the privilege to work directly with those resources. Bailey, so Colby needed to head out, and that's good. And Matt and I talked about how long we would go tonight and have a conversation, and the meeting, was set for an opportunity to kind of wrap up around 8 and kind of have a soft close, because I feel that when folks have an opportunity to, if we set a hard stop, then the opportunity to network and ask questions or share more kind of goes away. So, we've covered a lot tonight, and Matt, thanks again for your time, for being here. And, if there's anything else we can chat or share about, let's go ahead and do that. And if not, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Kevin. But yeah, Bailey, buddy, I can answer any questions or anything that you have on your mind of whatever direction you're looking into getting into.
Right now, I don't have too many questions. I do want to thank both of you for the discussion tonight. I'm still too far out to like really start looking for jobs. I think I did on my degree works for UNCW, and I still have a year. But I'm looking at becoming the president of the Wildlife Society here at UNCW, and gonna continue to try to get field experience with different biologists and field experience, I guess. My bad. With just different people. I know that Kevin also put us in contact with the fisheries biologist for the marine fisheries division. So we're also going to try and do something with them this summer and into the fall. So I'm just going to try to get as much field experience as I can for the next year through the club, and provide other students here at UCW with the field experience as well.
That's awesome, Bailey. And in that regards, thank you, especially being the president and taking that step up with the Wildlife Society. And definitely, encourage those students, and tell them all about this conversation tonight, and let them understand that these are kind of the issues. Well, I can't really say issues, but this is what you're up against. And as far as trying to find a career in this world of wildlife and fisheries, but yeah, just let them understand that. And as far as you and your field experiences, having a year out, buddy, you can never start too early. If there is a kid in high school that came out and helped, I would tell them you're not starting too early. If you have an interest and a passion for something, you just keep at it and keep finding people and talking to them, and you'll get there.
Thank you for the tips, man. Thank you.
Yep, I would agree. That's with a year out, you're doing exactly what you need to do. And as I've told you in emails, and I'll tell you again now, that just you seeing and lifting others up and sharing with them back, that speaks volumes for your capacity to learn and then share it back. And that is, again, things that just we see as those that are passionate and have a good work ethic about this. So keep it up. And yeah, a year out is it. Next year at this time, we'll be talking, about other things. So keep doing what you're doing, gaining that experience, volunteering, interning, and keeping track of those. And 5, 10 years, 15 years from now, it'll be interesting to look back at those notes. Actually, I look back to 1996 was my first day, May 13th, 1996, had lunch for $3.77. I'm like, man, I just hardly remember that, but without those moments written down, I think it's a great opportunity to look back on tonight, or a field work experience that you can talk about and share your story with.
I've never thought about writing down things like that. That's interesting that you have that stuff written down. I have heard of like other people having similar things written down, with like the price of gas, like so many years ago.
Right.
Like long time ago, though. Not
yes.
So many years
right.
ago.
You're right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's all about your story, and I think what it does is it highlights the things that you keep track of, and however you do it. Some folks are really good about keeping it in their minds and in their memories. Like a lot of times I think about the folks that play baseball, and, they talk about this play and they remember it, over and over and over again. And the reason why they remember it is they keep talking about it. And maybe they have it written down. I don't know. But, I think that's what we really draw on again as, a togetherness and the opportunity to work in this field and the challenges that we all are under. But, ultimately we have got great opportunity. So yeah, keep up the good work. A year out, we'll be interested in seeing where you're at. And, everyone that can attend and listen to this call, is certainly, we're hopeful that we can provide a little bit of information that, might be that feather in the cap or a note in the resume or something that cues people in to say this person knows what they're doing. So with that, again, appreciate everyone's time. And the Microsoft Teams worked out pretty good, and we do have a little bit of lag anytime the camera does come on. So, but in any case, thank you all so much. And Matt, thank you for your time. Bailey, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bailey. Yep. Good to talk to you, man. And reach out if you ever find your way up here in the mountains. We're all open to the public. Come by and see us.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I know I'm going to Brevard in May. Obviously a little further south of you, but I'm excited to get out there. I was hoping I was going to get to do some sort of fly fishing out there, but had some stuff pop up, and I got to kind of push the fly fishing part out. I'm excited. I want to go.
Well, hey, man, if you are making your way into Western North, if you're going to be in Brevard, that is like 15 minutes from where I'm from. And if you take Highway 276, you're going straight towards the Pisgah Fish Hatchery. If you're going to be there and if you have time, I would reach out to Adam Modacat from Pisgah and just say, hey, I'm in this and would just like to come by and see y'all's facility. And they are the biggest cold water facility we have. They produce almost 1 million trout a year, and they're fixing to go under a giant renovation. So he would be another person you could reach out to.
All right. I do like that Pisgah area. All that up there, that's just gorgeous. I've only been there once. I've only taken very few trips out to the mountains, but I do want to take more. It's hard with it being this far east and then having school and work. It's so hard to get out there, or it can be.
Well, definitely we will welcome you into the mountains when you get your chance. So yeah, it's good to talk to you. And Kevin, what he said was a really neat thing of that's even something I haven't done, which is a great idea of writing writing stuff down. And what you're going to end up finding is when you're building your story, you're going to have you got to enjoy it. Don't get too stressed out about it, because you're going to find these times where you're going to have just the coolest stuff happen. I mean, just going off of mine, when I worked at Wilkes, I ended up going and when I found this lady to let me live in this little rebuilt, refinished farmhouse, the lady was she's a firecracker, 82 years old. Come to find out, she was best friends with Merle Haggard. I actually got to talk to him on the phone.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. I will say this quickly, because I know we're trying to wrap up, but I was in her house and she said, I have you some tomatoes. And I walked over there and I picked up the tomatoes, and she slapped my hand and said, those are Merle's tomatoes. Put those back. Get these out of here. And then I literally laughed, and I said, because she was playing Merle Haggard, and I said, I would hate to take Haggard's tomatoes. And she said, yeah, me too. And I looked at her funny, and she has albums. She has pages and pages. She was a backup singer for him. He would come there to see her, and she would fix her. She would fix him dinner. She got to be there through all of his wives that he was with. She has tons of pictures with him. One of the coolest ladies I ever met in my life.
Wow.
That is really interesting.
It was so cool. So cool. So like I said, man, the world is your oyster on that regard. You're going to end up having weird, awesome things like that happen. I mean, anybody I talk to has an awesome story on how they got to where they are. So,
Yeah.
man, you'll find yours.
I thought that was so funny.
What was that last part? Sorry.
Oh no, you're good, buddy. I was just saying you'll find your story. You'll have all sorts of cool stuff to talk about, man. So we look forward to meeting you again at some point.
Yeah, I do look forward to it. And Kevin, if I'm reach out to you in the future, I was wondering if you would maybe like to come give a presentation to the Wildlife Society here. I know we don't have an American Fisheries, but I try to include people that are interested in the marine biology and that side.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be great.
There's nothing for them.
That'd be great. I've been trying to get a hold of Dr. Scharf, and I would probably be in the area to pick up a backpack shocker and something else and chat with him too, so I can make a trip out of it.
All right. Yeah, we'll have to put something together. I'm sure that if it's anytime soon, you let me know, and I can I'll reach out to our current president and see if she's okay with it, and if we can fit something in, and if not, we can plan for next semester or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. All
right.
I'll keep in touch.
All right, Bailey. Thanks so much. I'm gonna let you go and have a good evening.
All right, y'all as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. See you, man.